Hi. So this is Frank again, and this is part 2 of the cat playground video. And what I want to do in this video is make one more of these. What I'd like to do is make one of these that's slightly wider. And then sort of the bigger thing that I want to do, and more kind of the part 2 to this project, is to build 2 square sort of wide frames that'll sit on this wall, and they'll be less of something for the cats to move through and more sort of a place for them to sit and survey the room, and to link kind of this ladder that the cats can get up the wall to the boxes on this wall. I want to build some bridges that sort of sit on the cleats and will let the cats move about the room up high, which is what cats like to do. So I thought I would make I'd make one more of the hexagon pieces. Why I want to do that is to make one that's a little wider, so there'd be more of a space for the cats to sit and actually hang out. This one would go up near the top, so it would be mostly out of the way. But what I thought I could do with this is that in the last video, I got a lot of comments about why did I do all the rabbets and dadoes on the table saw and the radial arm saw? Why didn't I just cut those on the CNC machine? And I had thought about that. My thoughts were that, one, I would have to hold it in a way that I could cut the inside and the dadoes at the same time with the same hold down. So I would have to make sure all the hold downs are out of the way. On the last set that I made, I was holding them at the corners so that the dadoes were going to hit there. So I'll need to figure out a way to, I think, just hold them on the sides and hopefully make that work. I think it'll work. The little bit bigger issue I was thinking about was that I would have to do a drawing to do those dadoes. They don't just come out of nowhere. When I was doing them sort of manually with the table saw and the radial arm saw, I could base those cuts based on the edge of the overall shape and the center for the centerpieces. Whereas if I do a drawing, that drawing is kind of set. It's its own thing. And it's just going to cut them regardless of where the shape is. So I need to make that drawing very precise to the size of the thing that I've made. So that's not a huge issue. It's one of those things where the precision is in a different place. When I do it manually, the dadoes are very precise to the edge because they run along the fence. But the overall size varies because each one might be a tiny bit different. Whereas if I cut them on the CNC, the dimension between the dadoes is very precise, which sort of doesn't matter, but they're not precise to the edge. They're as precise as I can measure it. It's not something that has to be an issue, but it's definitely something to work through in doing that drawing. If I cut it and screw it up, I've screwed up this whole thing on the CNC machine. Whereas when I'm doing it manually, I can see that it's correct as I'm doing it and stop if there's anything that needs to change.
I did figure out how to mount the hexagon to the CNC table. Holding the hexagon along its straight edges worked, as I could cut out the middle and cut the dado and the rabbet without hitting the hold downs. I managed to line the drawing up with the hexagon and have the drawing be close enough to what was needed that the dados and the rabbets seemed to fall in the right place.
So that actually went a lot better than I thought. And it looks like they're going to work as far as the pieces fitting in. So I think if I was going to make 4 more of these or 100 more of these, I'd probably just hold it on the edge like I did with this and do them just do them all on the CNC machine. Although in thinking about it, even now doing the extra run on the CNC machine isn't really that much quicker than doing it manually on the table saw and the radial arm saw once they're all set up. Just like this took a bunch of setup, those machines take a bunch of setup. Once it's set up, then it goes really quickly.
I can take the hexagon off the table. Now I need to make the same parts I made with the other hexagons, except this one's going to be wider. And as I've been using 7-inch wide pieces of wood, I needed to put two pieces together to get the width that I wanted. I think I ended up making the width 12 inches on this hexagon. And I cut the various lengths that I needed. And I rounded over the center piece, or center pieces. And I cut everything to 12 inches. I probably should have cut the width first. I realized at this point that would have been a little easier. Then it was just putting everything together, which was straightforward. Just some glue and some finish nails. And once I had one side, I could flip the piece over and do the other side. I did the same thing where I cut off a little bit of the extra on the top and the bottom. Then I could sand everything flush. This one being wider was getting to the limit of my disc sander. And I added the cleat. So we had saved some of the pieces of carpet from the basement project. I thought it'd be nice to use some of this for the floor of this wider hexagon, which would sort of give the cats something soft to sit on, but also something familiar, since they know the carpet in the basement family room. I added the new piece, and Waffles seemed to know what to do, and found it very comfortable. She actually sat on it after a stretch. So the next part of the project is to make the two frames that'll go on the other wall. I prepared some of the same wood that I've been using, and I cut those to length. I decided these frames would be a box with 90-degree corners, and they'd be 24 inches on a side.
So in doing the corners of the boxes, I kind of wanted to do a dovetail. I thought that would be kind of interesting. And I wanted to do something on the CNC and use my vertical table. And the thing I really wanted to try and do is to cut both sides, so both pieces of wood in a single pass. As I've got two boxes, each with 4 corners, that's 8 corners. And if I had to cut these separately, that's 16 different setups. So if I can cut that in half and do each corner together, then I can make that only 8 setups. So what I've come up with is to put the piece that makes the pins on the vertical table. I need this spacer piece for my clamps. Get that started. And then the tails can go on the table. And I have these stops set up so it falls in the right place. And I can move the board that's on the table to the vertical table and get those lined up. I've done my drawing. Where is my, here we go. I've done my drawing, so this spacer piece, which is 0.66 inches wide, goes in between, and I can lock down the piece on the table with the hold downs. And when I pull this out, it's then the right distance apart for my drawing. And in my drawing, it cuts both the pins and the tails right in this location. Now I have my drawing and my toolpath set up so that this point here's the 0, 0, and I actually use the corner finding function of the touch plate, which I've never done before, and it turned out to be super easy. So I was able to find this corner very precisely, and then that allows me to cut the two sides of the joint together with one file and sort of do this whole joint just in one pass, which is really nice.
I'm cutting the pins here on the piece that's mounted to the vertical table. Now I can cut the tails. I also set this up so that all 4 jobs, so the 2 roughing passes and 2 finishing passes, were all one file. So it would just cut it all at once, and I didn't have to stop and load new G-code files. I did the corners for one of the boxes, and I had posted a picture of that on Instagram, and folks were commenting that they look like cat paws or cat heads. That got me thinking it'd be nice to make the pins, or sort of the pattern of the joint, based on a cat somehow. As I can't do very sharp corners with the router bit on the CNC machine, I thought maybe doing the cat's nose as the shape of the pins would be kind of nice. So it's the same idea and the same single file to cut everything. So it's doing the final bit of the finishing pass here. And it worked and went together. I wanted to cut holes in the sides of the boxes so the cats could get into the box from the side. And I thought it'd be nice to make something sort of cat related. So I took the drawing that I had done for the tabletop a few years ago, and I sort of stretched that out and moved the ears and made something a little taller. I cut out a test piece and put it in our sliding door, as I wanted to make sure our bigger cat Cinnamon would fit through it. I realized if I cut the holes in the actual pieces and then the cats didn't fit once everything was together, that would be kind of bad. Then I could cut out the 4 holes on the 4 sides of the 2 boxes. And I rounded over the edges on those holes, as the cats would be sort of brushing up on the sides of this. So I thought it'd be nice to sort of soften up the edge of the holes. I added a dado for a middle shelf. Then I glued everything together. So it was just a matter of getting glue on the joints on each end and just putting those together. And it seemed to come out pretty square without having to really adjust very much. And I added a piece on the back for the cleat to attach to. And this would help hold it square. Originally, when I was thinking about this box, I was thinking I would do a wider shelf at the bottom for the cats to sit on. But in thinking about it a little bit, the cats would have to jump down from the hole that I had cut to the bottom of the box. And that was a pretty big step. So what I thought would be nice would be to add a shelf in the middle that was wider and was closer to the bottom of the cat cutout, or the cat door. And this would allow us a little shelf under the cat shelf to store people things. So it's not all just cat shelf. And this allows the cats to move through the cat door without having to step down so far.
So I've made the wider shelf for the cats to sit on, and I thought it would be nice to make an edge for this. So it's a little more protected. It's a little more like a box. Cats like boxes. So I've been making the edges to go around the platform, and I've come to where it connects to the main box, and it's kind of this dumb joint where this piece just collides with the side of the box. And I've been wondering how to attach this better. One thought was to do some kind of biscuit in here, or maybe even do some kind of bow tie across that surface. But I think kind of the quickest, dirtiest way to do it would be to just put a pocket screw on the inside, just to hold it together. I could start to slow down and really kind of fancy this up, and that's going to take forever. So I'm thinking this will just be a much quicker way of doing this. This doesn't really need to be that strong. It's just as this flexes, that joint may come apart. It'd be nice to hold that nice and tight and flush right there.
And you can see why I made that back piece to attach the cleat to. Once I had put the box together, I realized the sides where I'd cut the doors for the cats, I had very little material to attach the cleat to. And I cut out another piece of carpet for the cat shelf. And I could put them in place. Now, to get the cats up there, I need to build the bridges or the walkways for the cats. And these will be really simple. They'll just be a shelf with a cleat on the back. I made a shelf and a piece to go along the back of the shelf that will hold the cleat. I wanted the shelves to be just above the door, so there'd be the most room possible for the cats. This narrowish piece on the back helps to hold the cleat in the right place. And now I'm attaching that piece to the longer shelf that goes over the door. And I was doing everything with screws at this point, as I didn't know if I was going to need to adjust things, whether things were really going to fit. And I attached cleats to the back. Thought it'd be a little nicer to use shorter pieces of cleat, as this tends to go into the cleat on the wall a little bit better, as the wall's never perfectly straight, and it lets me use less cleat material. And you can see how these go sort of over the door. There's always some problem in the back of my head on these projects, and I was wondering how tight the opening through the door, between the door and the bridge, was going to be, because I couldn't really get the bridge low enough because of the height of the door. And the cats were kind of using their own scheme to get around that. But what I came up with was to make the bridge above the door at the height that I had it at, and cut off the section that wasn't over the door and lower that part. So it would sort of be a step between the bridge over the door and the opening into the box. It seems a lot nicer for the cats to move into the boxes. I made the other pieces next to the boxes lower as well. And I got Waffles to climb on the boxes as I was putting them up. And a nice shot of her going all the way back down to the floor. She seems to have it down better than Cinnamon. They seem to like it, at least for now. I've sort of been thinking of it as though we can use these for other things if the cats end up never really getting into this. Thanks for watching.